Hey, this is Steve Baltin. You are listening to Speak Easy on the Independent FM, and we cannot tell you how freaking psyched we are today to have on a longtime friend, the amazing Courtney Love, who will be playing the Troubadour tonight. But before she does that, she's going to talk to us. And Courtney, you were just saying, before we came on the air, you were messaging Judd Apatow. It's funny, I was reading an interview you did with LA Weekly, and I know that you have some interest in going back into acting, correct?
Yeah, it's, it's a really small venue. I've never actually played the Troubadour. I just got a message from Cameron Crowe, and, he was always really defending Stephen Stills, and then I read Shaky, that book on Neil Young that takes like 2 years to read. You ever read that book?
I have not read that. When we talked about that in the last interview, I read Just Kids, and I went all the way through the Keith book, which you said you did not finish.
No, I can't. Because I know what's going to happen. The first chapter, it's peyote, it's coke, it's knives, it's gun. Hey, guess what? The second chapter is going to be peyote and knives and coke and guns and chicks. And the third chapter is going to be peyote and knives and guns and coke and chicks and heroin. I mean, I get it. Other people don't know Keith's whole deal, so,
What I was going to say, what's funny as shit is I would have expected that, and by the way, this is internet radio, so feel free to cuss, it doesn't matter, but what I was going to say is that what's funny as shit is that's what I would have expected, and it was so technical. It was so guitar heavy, for example.
No, you're right, and I got to the part where he went to Patty Hansen's parents' house and, flipped out on them. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and there were one or two digs he had at Mick, but in general, it was actually way flatter than I would have expected. So there was very little peyote, heroin, things of that nature.
Right, it's really, really, really good. I'm not saying who it is, but he's like an proper Englishman. I think he might be an OBE, like Sir, yada, yada. But I will say he's related to the actor that was in Performance, which is interesting because You Got the Silver was written in that, if you remember, Mick and Anita were having an affair, and Keith wrote probably, I think Better Than Happy, his best song, depressed in a limo because his best friend was fucking his girlfriend on the set of one of the greatest movies ever made. And, it's the movie Performance is the movie that every single rock band in the world tries to make their rehearsal studio look like.
Nice. So how old were you when you tried to make your first rehearsal studio look like Performance?
Well, my first rehearsal studio, technically, my first whole rehearsal studio was the Chili Peppers rehearsal studio in Echo Park. And they used it at night, and I stripped in the day. Somehow we made it work. Wait, they used it in the day, we used it at night. And Flea made that happen. So every time Anthony and me, one time we were at a meeting of 12-step meeting that is a private anonymous thing, and we both had dishwashing duty for about 2 months. And you know what? I've known Anthony since we were roommates with this chick Kim Jones in 1983 or 4, right after I got booted out of Faith No More, and we've never been friendly at all. One night when we were living together at that house, this girl Kim Jones, there was a really bitchin' show. It was Tex and the Horseheads and the Dickies and whatever, a Thelonious Monster or something at the Stardust. And I was like, "Are you going to the show?" And he was like, "No." And I'm like, "Why not? This is great advice, by the way." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to wash my hair." And back then he still washed his hair with mayonnaise. It's like you can go ask Alice. That drug book we were growing up. Remember that book? That book about the anonymous drug addict.
Yeah, Go Ask Alice. Yeah, absolutely.
On H or one of those books.
Yeah.
She'd wash her hair with mayonnaise. Anthony would put an egg yolk and mayonnaise on his hair because he had that long, shiny hair. And he said, "I never go out without my mojo." I'll never forget it because he's right. It's bad to go out without your mojo. If you're not feeling your mojo, don't go out. But anyway, skip to, now we're in 1989-90, and Flea gave us the studio, which did not look anything like Performance. But earlier than that, in my pretend girl band, that were more in Portland. And then the Babes in Toyland studio, we did a lot of stuff to me, cheap Persian rugs you buy on the side of the road, or someone has parents that has moth holes in it, red candles with the Virgin Guadalupe on it. That's not just even a Los Angeles thing, although it's mostly that. Like Moroccan tiles are a little hard to get. But I know that Scott Weiland's, when he built his studio, looked a lot like the Performance thing, except for the fluorescent light bars.
See, what's amazing about that, and it's funny, you and I have talked so many times over the years, so I understand this. As you went off on all that, the pop culture information that came out of that for like the average person would blow their fucking mind. But it's interesting because what it makes me think about is the first time you and I met, of course, was at that Karl Lagerfeld party where we talked about the Kinks, and I always remember that. And I don't think people really
Right?
Yeah, I don't think people really have a freaking clue how much musical knowledge you have. I mean, are people surprised when they first sit down and talk to you about it? And it's like
my first thing I really wanted to be, I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be in the New Musketeers, but I also wanted to be a DJ. There was this AM station called KGW 62 AM, Uncle Don Wright, and he came to our school one day. He was bald as hell, and I was in like third grade, and I still got a crush on him. But I mean, I used to listen to Casey Kasem but then I discovered Dr. Demento, and that changed my life. Because Dr. Demento was the only outlet for anything even close to punk or anything close to weird in the whole country. King Biscuit Flower Hour and Dr. Demento were like the two national radio shows that like had weird stuff on them. Dr. Demento was novelty songs, but in those novelty songs, you hear Lola. I mean, I heard Lola on the normal stations because it became a hit, but here's this song about a transvestite or a transsexual, and I kind of understood that immediately about that song. And somehow got stuck. I was in a scene in Portland that was involved with the Chesterfield Kings, Miracle Workers, all those 60s revival bands in the early 80s. Some of them made them into grunge, actually. Early grunge had a lot, Sub Pop signed quite a few of those bands. There were 60s bands, but there was this 80s thing. Australia had a ton of them. What am I thinking? Radio Birdman and, what's that band that does Lip Spirit? The Saints. Know Your Product?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, come on. Know Your Product. Let me see what the string was. Know Your Product. Saints. It's Saints.
Okay.
And, I mean, amazing out of Australia. And then out of Boston, there was a band called The Liars, Lyres, that had a song called I Want to Save You, Anne. And then Chesterfield Kings and the Miracle Workers, and my best friend, Jerry, was in the Miracle Workers, and how I met Kat Bielens, other than the time I saw her leaving a limousine with Robin Zander when I was 13, wearing Calvin Klein cowboy boots with fringe on them and a white fringe leather jacket. She was one of the top groupies back then, and I was flat-chested, and Rick Nielsen kicked me out of the dressing room, which is great, because I was wearing saddle shoes and, corduroys. I really shouldn't have. And they were like twins with rabbit fur coats, and, this is post-Cameron Crowe's Band-Aids era. These were the girls that ate all the steak and didn't use birth control. So, Rick Nielsen, noticed me, and he was like, all right, get the kitty out of here. And this very famous photographer named Neil Zauer, who I finally met on the set of Almost Famous, gave me a ride home. He was bitching about it always. Grumpy old Jewish guy. He's now a 60-year-old grumpy old Jewish guy with a photo agency, but he gave me a ride high. It was like 40 minutes home, and he gave me a ride. It was so nice. I could have gotten molested that night. I didn't know those girls gave blowjobs or passes. I just talked my way back.
That's impressive, though, that at 13 you talked your way back, and it's also kudos to Rick Nielsen for recognizing the fact that you were for 13 and, getting you out of there. Now, before we come on to that for a second, since you always wanted to be a DJ, you said, pick a freaking song for us to hear. We'll listen to that, and then we'll come back and continue on with these amazing stories.
take some action.
All right. Well, Flaming Groovies, there you hear it at the suggestion of Courtney Love. So this is Steve Baltin, Speakeasy on Independent FM. We're going to hear the Flaming Groovies at Courtney Love's request, and we'll come back in a minute. This is Steve Baltin on Speakeasy on Independent FM. We are here with Courtney Love, who is doing an interview and being guest DJ and regaling us with just amazing, ridiculous stories of being 13 and in a dressing room of Cheap Trick shows, getting rides home from famous photographers, and how Anthony Kiedis used to wash his hair at the beginning. I mean, I want to come back, though, for a second to acting. What's the dream gig? What's the one when we started talking off today, we started talking about the fact that you're interested in getting back into acting, which is perfect because you're playing LA tonight. What's the dream gig, the one that you would want to do?
Dream gig in terms of acting?
Yeah.
I really want to do stunts. Listen, man, I mean, Natasha Leone and me had some similar problems with drugs back at the same time. She actually kept asking for my phone number. Thank God she didn't get it, because, you know, we were doing the same awful, nasty, evil, ghetto street drug, and the two of us together would have been a disaster. And enough friends intervened, but she burned down a house, man, and went to Baltin. It just wasn't as public. And she's working on Orange is the New Black. And then there's Downey. And it's like, you know, Barrymore says that Downey is a sexist thing. I don't believe it. I think, you know, the way that Downey, the thing I was going to tell you about Anthony is that we did the dishes together at this big, it was called the show-off meeting. Like, this is like, I don't know, 2006, and everyone was still wearing Strokes t-shirts. And, you know, it was like the groovy meeting. And but it has the Beverly Hills in it. And me and Anthony would do the dishes at this meeting. We never said a word to each other. I mean, we had a 6-month commitment to do dishes after the meeting. And, you know, he'd say, pass the soap. So, me and Anthony aren't, like, buds, but without that band. And listen, I've been to Juvenile Hall. And the problem with Juvenile Hall is that a lot of prostitutes, young prostitutes, came in there, and they were all listening to Cameo and George Clinton. And so it completely turned me off to that music, because I related it to these young prostitutes. So when Catholic Girls came out, and me and Jennifer Finch, me and Jennifer Finch went to Fairfax High deliberately to stalk the Chili Peppers. More Jennifer was stalking them than I was, because I wasn't a super fan. I wasn't even a fan. But Finch, who was later in L7, I think she's coming tonight too. And, you know, L7 famously, Danita threw the tampon at Reading. Do you know that story?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. They were getting beer. It was raining. Beer cans were raining on them, and Danita just reached into her underwear and she was menstruating very heavily, and she threw a tampon. And I get it all the time, because it seems like all that era of girl bands is like, or chick bands is like meshed together. Some guy comes up to me, not even a month ago, Steve, and goes, "Hey man, you once hit me with a tampon at the Palladium." Dude, if I had that idea first, I would have done it. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. And I wasn't going to steal her stick. You know what I mean? Like, that was Danita's moment.
Yeah, well, it's probably best that you didn't throw it.
To the crowd.
Yeah, probably best anyway. It would end up fucking sold on eBay, so, you know, there you go.
I don't know what happened to the tampon. I've heard there's a video where you can kind of see it, but it's a small object. But, I mean, that's pretty genius. If you're getting bottled and it's muddy and, you know, you don't have any recourse, but you're a woman, pretty good recourse.
That is pretty good. I mean, it's funny. I'm sure that, you know, there have been times. Have you ever thrown anything out at fans, or have there been moments where you're just like, you know what, dude, if I could go into the crowd right now, I'm going to deck this guy?
And it's getting feisty and it's muddy. You know, I don't get stuff thrown at me often. But I tend to, like, get it all established, get it out in the beginning, have the crowd say, fuck you to me, and I say, fuck you to the crowd. Yeah, I earned it. They're unpacking my room, so you're going to hear me barking orders. If you could get that iron, that'd be great. And then roll it up. Thank you. I'm on the phone. I'm so sorry. But what was I just saying? I like to get the fuck yous out first, and then I get a lot of I love yous and da da da. But mostly people feel very healthy when they're in a large crowd screaming fuck you at the same time. It just, you know, gets all the aggression off the top. It's like the foam on the top of a good beer.
Well, what's interesting about that, though, too, is it's also what ends up happening now, and it's so funny to watch. And I mean, as someone who's gone to shows forever, the crowd feels so much more enabled to participate at this point, thanks to like internet era and everything like that, and everybody does it. But at the same time, I'm sure mostly what you end up getting is a lot of like, random requests for whole songs, and then, of course, the occasional asshole who yells at Freebird.
I get a lot of requests for what?
For either whole songs, and then I was joking, the occasional asshole who yells out Freebird. But my guess is, yes, you do get a lot of people like yelling, like, do doll parts, or do, out of whatever,
Wearing on their chest. Listen, I got stuff on the request on the chest. I've got, the craziest thing in San Francisco the other day, it was about 2 weeks ago. This girl, 20 years old, hands her California driver's license to Miko, and I need glasses to see, like, on stage like that. But she changed her name legally to Miss World. I mean, I've seen tattoos of my face on your ass. I've seen, lyrics of mine everywhere with pictures. I've seen the whole nine. This chick, 20-year-old female, not a gay boy, changed her name to Miss World. I thought that kind of took the cake.
Yeah, it's so funny. As an artist, I'm curious, is that flattering or does it weird you out a little bit?
That didn't bother me. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it's San Francisco. People do weird shit. So we're out of it. I mean, it's not a tattoo. This one woman got the whole story of Violet, whatever her version of, with fish, with pills, with heaven and hell, because I see one above and one below, and, it's all Violet, and it's her entire leg.
Wow, I mean, at least she took that whole idea of lyrical interpretation and she ran with it, but...
Yeah, she did a really good job. Tattoo artist is a little skeevy. Wait, I'm going to grab a smoke. Hold on one second. Tattoo artist is a little skeevy, but, it was good. It was interesting. It was somewhere upstate, or, like, near New York.
Nice. That's always interesting to me. I mean, when other people interpret your music, because you get to hear it in different ways, and people will pick up on things that's kind of interesting to you even. I have never heard of another artist having their work interpreted through tattoo like that, so you probably got a different rendition of it. But I am curious, I mean, as people start to interpret your stuff, and you see these like lyrical, sort of interpretations, what have been some of the ones that have been most interesting to you, besides, of course...
I saw was an academic one. There was a curriculum when we were like sizzling hot, there was a curriculum, and I'm hoping we will, and I think we will be again. But there was a curriculum at some liberal arts college, and these two women had written. It's hard to find. You got to go on Google Books to find it, but I can show it to you at some point. I can remember the name of it. Anyway. Violet is interpreted as a song about spermata going up into the ovum, and it's crazy, but it's not interpreted that way lyrically. There's two sides to this academic. It's an academic thesis on my lyrics up to that point, which is about, I think it was 99. So it's listed as Celebrity Skin and Pretty on the Inside. So it's those three albums, and which are the most popular ones, And the other girl did her whole thesis on the actual musical parts. I can't read music, so this is almost absurd. Where the spermata going to the ovum in Violet occurs is in the F sharp sus7 transition to a G sus7. I mean, she was a musicologist, or budding musicologist, who interpreted my actual chord progressions. It was freaking crazy, and it was in, like, feminist studies, and it was so funny. Some of the lyric interpretations in that, I love it when they get academic on me. I love it. I mean, Madonna's had a ton of academic classes. Gaga has academic classes now. You can take all these pop culture classes at certain schools, and your parents are paying a fortune for you to go to Brown so you can study Lady Gaga and underwater basket weaving. But it's, and Katy Perry's tits and how she's going to, her tits are going to heal cancer. I don't get, man. I don't get.
Have you ever guest lectured?
A nice rack, but, man, I couldn't pick her out from the lineup.
Well, before we talk about Katy Perry's tits,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I there's a lot of people out there who would love to discuss Katy.
It kind of came from Frances, just like in the sense of like I hung out with her recently, and she was just like, I told her what I heard Katy Perry's net worth was, and I was like, what the hell? She was like, she just went on a rant. I'm not going to repeat it, but it was like, whoa, dude. You know, she's not a fan of black veiled brides either, but man, wow.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think taste is all, it's all just opinion. I mean, it is funny to hear, and it is fascinating to see what people migrate to. But before we get to that, we will wrap up on that. I want to go back and talk about the academia for a second, and I'm really curious, have you ever guest lectured at a university? Because I think that would be freaking awesome to hear. You have more stories, and again, I fucking interviewed everybody. You have more stories than anybody I know.
And Trinity, when I thought they were going to give me honorary degree, they actually gave me an honor, and I told Bono this at an Eden show. I was like, I'm getting an honorary degree from Trinity Dublin, and he goes, I have a PhD. I'm like, yeah, of course you do. But, I mean, give me a break, and the great thing was, none of those guys were there. They were Steve Jobs' funeral, they were playing the president's birthday, they weren't in Dublin. And this is winter when they go to Dublin, because they go to south of France and different parts of the world in the summer. But, I mean, in Dublin sometimes that's all anybody talks about is you do this, you do that. And Bono's best friend is a guy named Gavin Friday that I love, and I'm pretty close to it. Always had a lot in common with. And they weren't there. So we had a really good time exploring Dublin sans you two. The only thing we did was we went to the so Bono and Gavin grew up really, really poor. Edge grew up like working class, Larry grew up working class, and Adam grew up like aristocrat practically. They all went to the same school, but the classes were different. But I mean, Gavin Friday was in this band called the Virgin Prunes, and in 1981, they were the first band that I saw in Dublin when I went to Trinity College, because I went to that college. So that's why I thought I was getting a degree, because I'd gone to the college. And instead I got a thing from the Philosophy Society, but still I gave a big lecture and pointed most of my lecture towards Gavin because he'd done so much as an Irishman for Dublin. And, we had a great time for a week. It was like our town. Well, there was no U2 interruptions. You know what I mean? Like the boys. We weren't going out with the boys. And we didn't talk about them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like if you go to Dublin and you go to a club and you ask, or a restaurant and you ask how the duck is, you're going to hear, U2 doesn't even do their banking in this country. So what started me wanting to act again, and this speaks really well, is that 3 years ago I was in Cannes at the film festival. I'd been to Cannes many times, but never to the film festival. And I saw Sean Penn, and he said, "Do you want to go to this movie?" I did. And I said, "What is it?" And he goes, "I just play this boss detective." He told me nothing else. And I walked into this theater, and it's all these major Hollywood players and yada yada. And it's this little indie film that is named Paolo. And in it, Sean plays Gavin Friday, who was in a band called the Virgin Prunes. The band that I saw before I saw U2. They were scary. I mean, Gavin would wear platform heels that were 7 inches high. I mean, he was the Marilyn Manson, but scary and authentic of his time, and poor. And so he would make his rubber pants out of garbage cans. And at one point, he got arrested because he started a fire inside the venue and then trapped everyone in the venue. I mean, they had extinguishers and no one was going to die. But I saw them and I was freaked out. I was like, I was coming from the land of like Marshall Tucker band to this post-punk thing. I mean, serious. And on Gavin's 50th birthday, for Red, Bono let him, he wanted to play Carnegie Hall on his 50th birthday. And Gavin is like behind the scenes. He does a lot of their creative consulting, but I mean, he doesn't take much money for it, and he won't take money from Paul McGinn, something. Like, he's got all this integrity. And, I mean, we relate really well because we're both really stubborn and have all these integrity rules and stuff. And, he doesn't live like some billionaire or whatever. And, and he doesn't let anyone abuse him or use him to get to Bono at all. I mean, they've been childhood friends since they were 7. So we walked by the Bono Box hearing aid store, which still exists in Baltin. And I was like, it's still here? Tourists don't even know about it. It's like still there. I mean, the sign's all creepy and whatever. But anyway, Sean Penn was playing Gavin Friday, a Nazi hunter with an Irish accent in this movie, and I thought I was on peyote because I'm like, wait a minute, Sean Penn's playing Gavin Friday. No, nobody knows this. I'm the only person. There's 500 people in this audience. Nobody knows this. I'm like, is Bono here? Is Gavin here? And I walked into this room after the movie, and there's Gavin, and there's Sean, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not insane. So I really thought I was going crazy. I was like, how does Sean know? I know Sean and Bono are friends, but how does Sean know how deep Gavin and Bono go? And, I was in Dublin in 81, and the reason that I left and went to Liverpool and started hanging out more with Echo and the Bunnymen is because I worked at Windmill Lane Studios for about 5 days on the album October, which was the second album after Boy.
Yeah.
And God bless her, she's passed away now, but Steve Lillywhite's wife thought I was there to, be a groupie. I didn't even have boobs. I wanted to be a recording engineer at that point. So I'd gone from DJ to, what Linda Perry does now, professional songwriting. I kind of wanted to be, the first, Rick Rubin kind of thing. That's what I wanted to be. And I had gone to this thing that no longer exists called the Rose City School of Engineering for about a week. So I knew the difference between a log splayer, pink noise, white noise, a VU meter. I thought I knew it all. And all I got to do was kind of plug in Edge's guitar sounds. He was the only one that I met at that time. And, I didn't see them out much, and they weren't mentoring me. And so when a band called Teardrop Explodes that no one remembers came through town, the lead singer, and remember, I had no boobs, which was my blessing because nobody sexualized me. I didn't have to sleep with anybody. Nobody even wanted to sleep with me, which was great because I became like the kid, go get us some coffee kind of thing. You know what I mean? Instead of being super pretty and having to deal with all that stuff, I was like the kid that wouldn't go away. So Julian says to me, 81, yeah. He says, do you want to take acid? And I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm just going to get jealous because I'm going to be a bigger rock star than you someday. And he said, that was hilarious. Said, do you want to live in my house in Liverpool while I'm on tour? And I said, okay. And he gave me the keys to his house. I was 14. And I called my best friend from Portland, convinced my trust fund that I needed more money for my semester at Trinity, dropped out, went to Liverpool, and went and lived in this squat with members of Echo and the Bunnymen, who became my favorite band. And cut to about 3 years ago, I went to Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin's house, and I was terrified to go because they're so perfect, right? I mean, think about it. They're like perfect people. They're blonde. They're beautiful. Their marriage is perfect. They don't smoke. They're I love Gwyneth like the sun, like the sun rising. I love her like a full moon. Okay, but I'm terrified to go in her house. I stood her up 3 times because I was so scared. And this is right after rehab, and my counselor was English, and she's like, you need to stick with the winners, and you need to be friends with people who want to be friends with you. And not think of yourself like whatever. I walk in, they've got a pack of cigarettes out for me. They've got a lighter out for me, ashtray out for me. I go and I go pee, and there's Echo in the Bunnyman book, and Chris Martin goes, come up to my room, come up to my room, I want to show you something. Chris Martin does not Google people, all right? He's not like a Google person. He doesn't sit there and read, Perez Hilton. And he's got this vinyl room, and he puts on Crocodiles, the first Bunnyman record, and he puts on Rescue, which is the first song I ever learned other than I Will Follow on my guitar. And he goes, you should cover this song. He doesn't know I played it with the Bunnymen. It's Greek. He didn't know that. But he had listened to 4 songs of mine, and his musical intellect was so high. I had so much respect for him, and which remains. And when I first met him, Stipe introduced me to him, and I was such a bitch. I was on so many drugs, and I was like, are you in Travis? I mean, I was being so obnoxious. Because, he was clearly a very competent guy, and, you know, Yellow, and those songs were just brilliantly written. And he was at the Chateau Marmont piano, and, I mean, insanely good looking. And I was just like a CUNT to him, really. I mean that in the English sense of the word. But I was just horrible. And, you know, I'm amazed, like, he got over it. And, you know, I mean, I've apologized to him, but, you know, we've gotten into really deep conversations, I think you and me have gotten into, about, like, Muse, and how Muse is not a band to take lightly, and there's a lot there. There's almost too much there. Like, I can't get into Muse because there's too much to study. It's too much. I'm not saying everything's brilliant, but nothing is indeliberate. Because I really thought Muse was the poor man's Radiohead. But my point about Chris Martin is, like, to be that musically intelligent, I mean, he listened to 3 or 4 songs of mine, and came to the point, she's Echo and the Bunnymen. That's where she comes from, Echo and the Bunnymen. I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, that kind of musical intelligence is so rare, and I have so much respect for it when I come across it. And you know, we're playing with this guy, Ginger Wildheart. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Well, he's got a really small but extremely aggressive fan base, and he's the real thing. And what his problem was is that he was playing serious rock, like Nirvana, Soundgarden, major, you know, Sabbath-tinged rock in 1991, when Nirvana and Soundgarden, etc., were playing that kind of music. But in England, it was Suede. It was Blur. It was, you know, a different thing entirely. So when Nirvana hit, it blended with Britpop to some extent. And, you know, I mean, Elastica was around. I remember when Damon and Justine were dating, and I went over to their house and spent the night. You know what I mean? Like, kind of thing. And we'd all go dancing at the Underground. And Florence and the Machine's now manager was 15, DJing back then, and we made friends, and da-da-da-da. But Ginger was playing real rock. And he's a true rock and roll soul, and he's opening, actually, acoustically for us, and then he's playing, and he's so damn good, he makes our band dangerous. You know, I mean, Miko and me are like an absolute team that all the money in the world is not going to separate me from Miko to play with Eric. It's never going to happen. And, you know, Cupine, my old management, who I adore, Peter Mensch, adore him, and I love his wife. Her name is Louise Bagshaw Mint. She's Tory MP, so she's a member of Parliament, and she used to be a chick lit writer, and I think he had a little thing with her on the side because she was at shows, you know, like this little flippity tippet, teeny pretty girl in an AC/DC t-shirt, but she was writing these Boinkbuster, you know, number one UK, you know, Boinkbuster, like beach books, you know what I mean? Like about chick lit, you know, about story, you know, romance books. And apparently in 19 years after they had a thing, like they sort of before he was married, and she got married, she became a member of Parliament, and she came to him and she said, "I'm in love with you, and I'm going to leave my husband. I've left my husband and I've left my child, and I want to be your wife, or I want to live with you." And the thing about Tories is they're notoriously, like, not into Jews. Like, they're, you know, allegedly, and this is, I know a lot of Tories, they're not anti-Semitic, but that's their reputation is, you know, xenophobia and da-da-da-da is in the Tory party. It's like they're Republicans, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so her name is Louise Mensch now, and she's a member of Parliament who happens to be the one quizzing Rupert Murdoch when he got the pie in the face, and when he dang stepped in front, which is kind of an amazing moment. But Peter manages the Peppers, he manages Metallica, has always, managed AC/DC, Def Leppard, da-da-da-da, and won't manage me again unless I get back together with Eric, and it's not going to happen.
Man.
Long way of saying it's not going to happen.
I know. We've talked about that, and unfortunately, we once for Mojo talked for 6.5 hours, so I know we could go on all fucking day, but I know you have other stuff to do, so we got to wrap up. As we go out, I would love for you to give me 3 songs to go out with, 3 songs, because we covered 8,000 bands, from Echo and the Bunnymen to Coldplay to Chili Peppers. We have to play Whole Violet since we talked so much about that, but for you as DJ, a couple of songs that you want us to play as we close out the show.
A good DJ Harvey song. Love.
Awesome song.
You Like My Love. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do the Savages, that New English band, Silence Yourself, or Shut Up.
Okay.
I think it's called Shut Up. I think the video is called Silence Yourself. And let's do, because me and Brody just hung out, we had a really good time, Distillers, City of Angels.
Nice. All right. Well, as always, an amazing pleasure.
By the way, kids.
I will see you tonight. As always, a great pleasure. This is Steve Baltin, Speakeasy Independent FM.
As always, I mean, I wish people were interested enough that we could go on for like 6 hours.
Dude, we could go on for 6 hours, and we'll do it. We'll do it again.
We lose a lot of listeners, though.
Yes, and we'll do it again sooner rather than later. But again,
in the 4 real rock geeks. But wait, before you go, what do you think about Pitchfork?
Well, as a Rolling Stone contract writer, I'm going to tell you, you know what? I would tell you this honestly, though. You know me long enough to know that I'm going to be honest no matter what. I think it's pretentious as fuck. And it's funny because I was at FYF Fest for some of this weekend.
I'm with you, man.
I can't get into the fucking indie hipster shit. I can't get into it. And it's like,
what?
Into the indie hipster shit. I just can't. It's way too much for me. And it's like,
it's not indie hipster. It's like, it's new and she's pretty.
Oh, I'm talking Pitchfork you're talking about, I thought you said, right?
Yeah, Pitchfork. We're talking about Pitchfork.
Right. Pitchfork. Are you talking about the website or something else?
You're not talking about Pitchfork?
Wait, we're confused now. So I was talking about Pitchfork, the website that reviews music.
It does all the indie rock bands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can't deal. It's like, you know, they're kind of mean to me, which is fine, but it's like, oh, come on, you're going to give this chick a great review and a video of the week because she's cute?
Well, it's also because they just want to be fucking contrarian. They just want to, like, whatever people think is cool. It's like, you know, I mean, it's,
it's an imitation of him. You got it right on the hit the nail on the head. You know, I mean, I want to win them over, but, you know, I'm not Josh O'May, and I'm not going to win them over because, you know, I'm not cool, man, even though I'm cool.
We know you're cool. All right, well, I'm going to let you get ready for the show. As always, a pleasure. I'll see you tonight.